we tend to be either having one mindset about what is the true Christian life, or we tend to think we're living the right Christian life when we're actually, in a way, going astray. And we see the consequences of both, right? We see in the Acts of the Apostles how the people who wanted to exorcise the demons, and they weren't really faithful, like they weren't faithful Christians, but they're like, in the name of Jesus, right? And then what ended up happening? The devil did one of the things that actually is, to me, is one of the funniest things that happened in the Bible. Told them, Jesus, I know. Paul and the apostles, I know. Min hadretak, who are you, right? Like, who do you think you are, right? And he embarrassed these people in the midst of everyone. And actually, funny enough, this kind of thing happens today, but we don't really realize it. Sometimes in some churches, they have practices like this, where people believe that they are exorcising demons or speaking in tongues and all these things, right? And then, they have many followers that start to follow them. And then you'll find one small video that exposes them. Or something that says, woman does not fall when pastor puts his hand on her forehead, right? And then what happens to all these people that followed this pastor or this teacher? They all they don't believe anymore. So the game is still being played the same today. But the devil has many other tools. He doesn't really need to beat up these people in front of everyone for them to be embarrassed. We have social media to do that for us. And this leads to something. This leads to what I like to call, or what the church likes to call, the spiritual death. Whenever there's a lot of falsehoods or a lot of wrong ideologies around us, it causes a spiritual death. And it's very poetic how the gospel that is placed today for us to read was the story of Lazarus. And we see in the gospel how the story revolves around a person who's dead, and ultimately Christ ends up raising him from the dead. We can look at this gospel and contemplate about the spiritual death. And we can contemplate on many things. On, for example, why is it that God sometimes allows for people to be completely dead spiritually? Sometimes we wonder, why does God allow things to happen? Why is God allowing a tribulation in my life to go so deep? Why is he allowing my son or my daughter to be having atheistic thoughts? Why is God allowing for so many of our youth to be led astray? These questions come to us as servants and as faithful Christians. Until when, O Lord? And we see here the same attitude came from no other but Mary, who knew Christ very well. She knew that he does miracles. She's aware of how powerful Christ is. Yet she says to him in verse 32, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Right? And it shows something. Does this mean that Mary is a bad person? No. Mary is a human being like every one of us. Right? All of us, because we are human beings, we are weak. And sometimes whenever we find ourselves alone or we cannot explain a certain situation, our impulse is to what? Is to say, where are you, Lord? If you were here, this wouldn't have happened. But there is a reason. There is a reason why Christ allowed for the death of Lazarus. And this is the same reason why Christ today allows sometimes for things to seem like they're getting worse. Because in order for the lesson to be learned, if you read in the very end at the very end of the gospel, it says that many of the Jews who had come to Mary and had seen these things Jesus did believed in him. Right? We sometimes take this for granted. Sometimes we say, like, okay, like I'm in the middle of a tribulation, or I'm having doubtful thoughts, or someone I know is having doubtful thoughts. God, please take this away from us now. We don't want this to get worse. We see how things can get, right? We know that the start, in the beginning of the road for somebody who is spiritually dead starts with doubt, starts with living in ways of life that, in a double way of life, meaning that sometimes we see our sons and daughters can be coming to the church and having a church life and everything, but outside the church, they have a completely different life. And this hurts the parents and the servants and Abuna. And then we say, God, please take this, help them right now. And sometimes it seems like God isn't listening, right? But here's the thing. When Christ interferes and raises them from the dead, not only will they become faithful again or become alive spiritually again, but those around as well will believe. You know, I believe that if Christ was to just heal him before he died, it would have been just a miracle that the Jews see all the time. But if these Jews who were close to Lazarus' family knew Christ and they didn't believe, based on this verse, it seems like they never believed before. Because it says, then many of the Jews who had come to Mary, they came to offer condolences, and when they had seen these things, they believed in Jesus. If they were going to believe because of a miracle of healing, they would have already a long time ago. But the wisdom of Christ here that is beyond our perception, the human perception, is that not only is Lazarus going to be rising from the dead, and an ultimate joy will be there, but also the people who had a hard time believing will also believe. So it's very important for us to understand sometimes that yes, there is spiritual death. There is a lot of things out there, but Christ allows for these things to happen, right? Not because he's ignoring or he just wants us to ask harder with us. No. But actually, he in the right time, when he's truly glorified in what he does, not only will it be for the benefit of the person, but for everyone around. And this is very important to remember, especially in the day and age that we're living in today. A day and age that is filled with many falsehoods, many things that are very, very deceitful, and things around us that can truly, it is truly and currently destroying the world ideologically. We live in a world today that really is dead in a lot of ways, right? Truth has become dead. Logic thinking has become no longer valid. It's about what I want to believe. I am the one who's in power. Everything is about me. Everything is about what I believe. Everything is about what I believe based on what the media is feeding me, or what the current events are feeding me, right? If I believe something that goes against these trends or these agendas, then that's it. It's done. I'm canceled. But we live in a world today where the world is pushing really hard for people to be less and less accountable, less and less alive. It's almost like the devil wants to kill us from within, to kill our conscience, to the point that even simple things such as accountability, or saying things as they are, or recognizing truth, has become doubtful. Today I live in a world where I can determine if I wake up today feeling like a boy, I'm a boy. If I wake up feeling like a girl, I'm a girl. And no one can say anything to you. On the contrary, it is now outlawed in some countries for you to speak against this. And so on and so forth with all the different agendas that are going on. And this is one of the worst kinds of spiritual deaths. Our hope is in the Lord, that in the right time, he will interfere. In the right time, he will be glorified. But for us as Christians, what we have to do is we have to hold on very tight. We have to be awake, and we have to understand deeply how to not only survive spiritually in this environment, but how we can raise our children and how we can be an influence to others around us in this environment, in order for us to be able to have soldiers in this fight, this spiritual fight. And of course, the most powerful weapons that we have are what? Number one, prayer. Right? Prayer doesn't mean that I just stand and I do my spiritual canon and that's it. It's not a magic spell like that. I stand there and I say my prayer and I've become a saint. Now I'm going to start, holy oil is going to come out of me and my hands are going to start to shine. No. Right? Or I'm going to pray right now and then, sometimes we take prayer, okay, I'm going to go pray right now and God is going to give me He's going to provide the car that I've always wanted. That's not how it works, right? Or one of my favorites is like Abuna, like in Arabic, and I'll try to translate it. It was shwaya bis-sabr, right? Like give me an extra prayers, like as if this is, like a Whataburger with cheese or something, like, yeah, I mean, that's not how prayer works. It's not how powerful Abuna prays for you on the altar that determines if the prayer is answered or not, right? It's from your heart. It's from your heart if you truly believe. All the prayers in the world, if they're not with faith, are worthless. If it's just a routine, it's worthless. So, true prayer, real prayer, meaning that I lift up my heart to God. I stand in front of God and I ask Him for everything that I need from my heart. And I will, and not just that. I should be standing and praying, expecting that He will answer in His timing, not my timing. That's why we say, Thy will be done. But sometimes we like to say, My will be done without noticing. So that's the first and most important thing. Secondly, as normal human beings, when we talk, we like to be responded to, or we like some kind of response, right? And that's the regular scenario. Now I'm not talking about, like, sometimes I know husbands are looking at me right now because they're like, Abuna, you don't know our wives, they talk and they don't let us answer. That's not what I'm talking about. Okay? In a regular conversation, not a fight, right? We usually we like to talk and we like to figure a response. Just imagine, if you ask your kids something and they don't respond, you're gonna be like, I asked you something, please respond, right? And this is a regular scenario. So I would expect, or I would think, that everybody who talks to God wants to hear a response. And we hear this response in what? In the gospel, in the Bible. The Bible is where we hear the responses of God.